If I'm being honest, I'm not really convinced about this topic, about how digital and social media affect mental health. I mean, there's data, sure, but have they really established a definite correlation? I think digital and social media are villainized for every bad thing that happens to teenagers. But of course, I'm going to think that I'm 17. But
Right.
ask any parent, mine included, and there's a whole other answer. So is the truth somewhere in the middle? Let's ask Ms. Nicole Rawson, founder of Screen Smart Clinic, an international network of digital wellness educators, and author of Screen Smart Sam, written to help prevent developmental problems from too much screen time. She's been immersed in research related to the topic and actively helps families reconnect to reduce screen time. Hello, Mrs. Rawson. Welcome to
Hi.
TeenWork. This is such a polarizing topic among teenagers and our parents. And we're really looking forward to hear your insights about it.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. It's hard to figure out, and I guess the most concerning things that we see from the outside looking in, and the research, does it really cause mental health? But it really seems to cause issues within our society as far as how we interact as humans. And from that aspect, it is definitely a problem because we want to develop our brains and our human qualities as much as we can when we're younger. That includes, playing on the playground when you're 2 and 3 and 4, learning how to share, learning how to, read people's reactions, how to look at these micro ways that they're saying things or how they're moving without coming to snap judgments. And what time on social media does and gaming is that it speeds up our snap judgments because we're seeing things so quickly online. So you don't have that repeated exposure to real humans to understand, let's take a beat, let's listen, let's try to understand, have empathy. It creates a world of real, just not authentic human interactions. And that becomes very problematic as children and teens and young adults become older with relationships, with schoolwork. In colleges, we're seeing young adults dropping out because they can't manage their time well. And that's because the persuasive design of social media that it keeps you in it over and over. And the gaming is so addictively designed. And the mental health aspect comes from that, not having enough human interaction, not having the ability to set it aside and use it in moderation and control what you're seeing, because those algorithms are so strong. They're showing you things that maybe you wouldn't even think of seeing, and they're causing you to second guess what you're doing, where you are in your life. If you have an eating disorder, it's making that worse. If you are depressed, it's making that worse. So we don't see that it's helping, and it's really in different societies. I can tell the differences in societies where we have heavy users and children of heavy users and those of not. And from you being in Dubai, and I've been there too, I do see the difference in people's interactions and their appropriateness and their ability to moderate. Maybe they're consuming more, but it's not so much in public from what I noticed. And it seems like there's more rules around not being used in schools and not being used for public photos and taking pictures of other people and pranking people. And there's just a little more, constraints around that. So that's what we're really at Screen Time Clinic helping young adults reparent themselves with better habits to keep that social media and gaming time to a reasonable amount that's not cutting into human time, and to help parents put those constraints that in America, society has really fallen flat. Teachers can't teach, phones are everywhere in most schools, parents can't tell their kids what to do anymore, and because they don't feel empowered to do so. But it's definitely affects our ability to be human, I believe, from what I've seen.
So um, there's usage and then there's addiction, and parents and teenagers can't agree on how much is too much. So who would you say is correct, and what amount of time a day would you say is correct?
You know, it's proven to have negative effects on your how much you want, and even 30 minutes can cause overstimulation. And it's different for everyone, just like addictive substances. Males in general are more susceptible to addiction. So once you start it, if you find that you don't have a take it or leave it attitude, if you can't just check social media or gaming for 30 minutes, maybe an hour, and it turns into 2 and 3 hours, and it's taking time away that you could be reading a book, practicing an instrument, researching, reading something about another topic that's truly intellectual. That's when it becomes an addiction that, even if it's, I would say more than 2 hours a day is our best advice for young adults and even adults, that it cuts into your time. And even with gaming, it's interesting. Games in history, have always been played. And all these different types of games, when you're done playing them, you usually come out feeling better about yourself. You play a game of soccer, you play a game of football, you go throw a ball. When the game is done, whether you've won or lost, you have a high from the exercise and the human connection that you've experienced. When you finish playing video games, as they're called, your brain is in a state of trauma, and it takes a long time to come out of that depressed, overstimulated state. That really raises blood sugar levels and is very well studied to cause a lot of physiological harm being under that much duress, even though you're looking like you're calm. Because some people, they can play a little bit and keep it in moderation, but most people, it's like the new, you want to be an NBA star, or you want to be a pro football player. Well, you want to be a pro esporter. There's very, very few that make it to that level. And the difference between pro sports and games is that when you're practicing to be a pro sports player, you're doing something that's healthy for your body. You're building muscle mass, you're building real coordination. People say, oh, well, brain surgeons and fighter pilots, they play video games. And those people have done really well because of their coordination with their hands and the computers. And those people have, and they're a special type that have way more self motivation and are overly motivated to be overachievers. And they're not the typical, I'm going to play video games and be a brain surgeon person, because yeah, maybe they're good at video games, but they are also studying very hard. They're extremists in all areas of their life.
All right. Now, let's say a parent realizes that their teenager is spending too much time on their social media. When and how do you intervene without drama or, and sort of encroaching on personal privacy and liberty?
Yeah, because it's really important to preserve the parent-child relationship too. You don't want to destroy that in an attempt to change something that, quite frankly, parents have allowed. If it gets to the point of being a young teen and you see this overuse, it's not the teenager's problem or the preteen's problem. It's actually the family problem, and it's the circumstances that has led up to that. And so there needs to be a lot of empathy and a lot of real care on not convincing and not destroying what was already allowed to be, and instead to find some creative and mindful ways to reconfigure their time, help them find new activities. And it's very tricky. That's why I really promote from a young age that parents are very particular about setting these healthy boundaries and getting children involved in activities, and having just some baseline rules at home that this is the way we function. We don't, have our computers on in our rooms. We don't have our video games, kind of like when seat belts in cars and even alcoholics and tobacco. Alcoholics used to not be alcoholics. They were just drunks, and they were made fun of in cartoons, and people were worried about them and could see that they're not having productive lives and never intervened. And it wasn't until modern history, I think it's only been like 30 years since we've been addressing alcohol abuse and what it looks like to live a more healthy life, and how seatbelt wearing is important. And, even though we'd all like to run around like crazy, that, it is the parents' responsibility to set some healthy boundaries, loving boundaries, and to help them find other passions and other ways to consume their time.
Just out of curiosity, you don't think that this may lead to resentment in any way, shape, or form? That maybe um, someone may feel that they're being unfairly, that their time is being unfairly sanctioned,
Manage.
managed.
Yeah, they do. But, in all of parenting is a very difficult job, and it's parents' jobs to do things that are not popular. But if you start the parameters and you make it known that this is how we do it, and this is our household, and this is how our values relate back to our goals for what we want you to be like in the future, and explain how, we want you to be the most human you can be, and make good connections, and have good social skills, and be able to explore other things in the world, and have a deeper understanding when you are going off onto your own, and really setting you up for success. Even though as a teens are notorious for hating their parents. There's not a teen in the world in any decade that didn't hate their parents for some reason or another. But you don't want to create that angst at a time. You don't want to say like, okay, today we're not doing any gaming and no social media, and I'm throwing it all away, and this is how it's going to be. We certainly can do that, but it's better to do it in a gradual, methodical way, to really be mindful about the time and how your family approaches social media and gaming.
What exactly would you say is so triggering on social media that would make a teenager who is already struggling with depression more depressed, or a teenager who's struggling with an eating disorder, sink deeper into that, or, and et cetera, et cetera?
Well, that's a great question, because for social media, there's a great research by the Wall Street Journal published it about just how the algorithms are so strong, and the scrolling. You don't need to click on it. You just wait an extra second, and that takes you to then more content and more content. And it's this far off content that you eventually get down to within a short amount of time. That's very problematic. So for girls, we mostly see eating disorders, or anxiety around what others are doing, the FOMO, a missing out, not being like others. And for the teenage mind, it's really hard to discern of how am I coming of age? Who am I? That question of who am I is really hard to determine when you're being bombarded by who is all these other people.
Mhm.
So if you can't just figure it out on your own with real life challenges and real life interactions, and in a bubble of some sorts, a safe bubble of your community and your goals, and real people that you see struggling, and real coming of age moments of not being able to do things that you want to do, and having to get a job that you don't want, and having to help other people, and not being able to be on social media. Like, even that is a coming of age moment, when parents say no and society says no, is a lot more and always seeing yes, yes, and the thoughts.
So you'd say that social media is perhaps a double-edged sword of some kind. It can open up networks, for support for mental illness, or, validation, and even a form of community, but it can also expose us to a lot of hate and, negativity as well.
Yeah. I mean, think about, I have social media. We're not anti-tech, but I hardly ever see posts from my own friends on my social media. because I'm just inundated with ads and with these other things that I've spent a second looking at and maybe followed a long time ago or something, but it's not as connected. And even with my own friends that are far away and doing different things, it really messes with your sense of contentment and how to find happiness in your current real situation and how to make the best of your life and think about your own future, not compared to others.
Now, we have an interesting question that actually came in from a parent with two teenagers. And it's, does social media make teenagers less social? My daughter is so shy in real life, and my son's conversation skills are no more than a grunt and an eye roll.
Yeah.
So, what is science's take on this?
It definitely destroys the social aspect, and that's a practice skill. Young adults don't reach their peak of their brain development, all these neurons in your brain that are trying to form till 25. So that's why we really want parents to step up, even in the older teenage years, take it away, dial it back, do a detox, take it away for 2 weeks and just say, you, and that's a big addiction red flag. If you can't go without social media and gaming for 2 weeks and it's gonna make your whole life fall apart and it's something you can't do without, nothing in your life should be that important that it has that much power over your emotions. And a lot of people, they do a 2-week detox, they feel better in 7 days. After 2 weeks, they extend it to 30 days and they just see the light that, wow, like I'm going for a walk. I'm all this mindless time that we used to spend as humans doing other things, talking to our parents, sitting down, you know, asking how someone else is, it gets sucked away by social media. So yeah, the family dynamic, and you know, in America, we see the whole social dynamic of the culture of disrespect just being proliferated throughout young children, younger and younger and younger. Children are in therapy because of their anxiety, because of their gaming addiction, that they are going to, and they're dropping out of college, losing thousands of dollars of tuition and thousands of dollars of therapy, that the gaming companies are going to get sued. You're going to see that more often. Things will change. It takes about 20 years, even with tobacco, for things to change and become more mainstream, but it will change. And there's more, because this can't just be a parenting problem. This is a society problem. This is changing the thread of our society. And to have, you know, social media, we're going to look back and say, oh my God, I can't believe we let our young children under 18, 21 access this, because it's an adult platform. There is no differentiation between what an 8-year-old sees and what a 28-year-old sees. And the addictiveness for the brain development, the younger the brain is up until age 25, when it's still developing, the more sensitive it is to these, the content, and the more likely you are to be hooked too. So the earlier exposure, again, on parents, you know, it's not my problem, I have a problem, it's your problem. But, you know, how do we rectify that and get on a new path to more healthy, conscientious use of it?
So first off, I just want to thank you so much for all those amazing suggestions you've made to parents to help their children, you know, navigate the pressures of, well, you know, what goes on social media without pulling, you know, without quote unquote pulling the plug on the positives.
Yeah,
So,
a lot of young adults and teens choosing to kind of be anti-social media, anti-gaming, and bring it back too. So that's encouraging to see them making their own choices. And as a teacher, I was in the classroom last year and I had a couple of students say, God, I know, I can't believe my parents let me do this. I can't believe they're letting my little sister. They should be taking more steps, and they don't. My parents don't care. And it's not that parents don't care, they just don't know how. and they don't realize the repercussions of allowing something. We all want our kids to be happy. I mean, it breaks our heart. We don't like being mean parents, but it's better to have structure. And, you guys know there's a little monster in over there that says this isn't right and there should be, a better way.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Great talking with you. Thanks for all you're doing to bring awareness to this issue.